Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, I'm Fayza Rahmania and I'm from class B. My name, my student ID, and my class. Okay, in this video, I chose the topic of English and diplomacy for this presentation. But first of all, before I start the presentations, the Honorable Mr. Uli Samanhudi as the lecturer of academic speaking course. Okay, I'm going to start the presentations with the topic about English and diplomacy. Language of diplomacy. What it means? So according to Lord Primelaw, 1976, language of diplomacy is any language which has been used for the conduct of official relations between the governments of independent states. And the number of such languages is really great, like there are so many languages of diplomacy. In today's usage, however, the term a language of diplomacy more commonly denotes a language used by the representatives of a group of government for the convenience of discussion without interpreters and also for the transaction of diplomatic business in a common tongue. Okay, so we know the languages which have been so used by the largest groups of governments in their day. It's called the main diplomatic languages. And among such languages, English has gradually and belatedly come to occupy the first place. And the factors which have contributed to the rise and decline of the major languages of diplomacy have been related to usefulness and convenience. After we know what is language of diplomacy, now we are talk about the relation between English language and diplomacy. English language and diplomacy, yeah. As I said before, among the diplomatic languages, English is the most widely used and it is the first choice of masses and elites. So in the screen, I have the data about the list of countries according to English-speaking people from the journal that I have read. So from the data, we can identify that English is the most widely used. And next, how English can be the one of language of diplomacy, like how where it begins. So English got mainly developed in the field of diplomacy when the Treaty of Versailles was written in English. The laws, decrees, talks, or international debates are all done in English. The use of English is a phenomenon that has spread in Europe and also the rest of the world. This has happened despite the development of Britain and the United States of America in industry, economy, culture, and so on. So before the 20th century, French was considered as basic language. So it was also studied as the first language in many high schools of that time. Despite this, English was not completely hidden. It was also studied as a second language since the beginning of 20th century. a period which it became a world language. And English is considered as the official language of international relations, focusing in particular on its role in the development of diplomacy. The greatest development of English we know it is occurred in the post-war years. Diplomacy is the core of relations between different states or organizations. There are some definitions concerning its meaning. We can consider diplomacy as the application of intelligence and tact in the development of official relations between governments of independent states. And as I said before, English got mainly developed in 20th century. Diplomatic meetings attach great importance to the oral communication of the participants. It is therefore necessary to analyze the oral communication requirements. Oral communication remains one of the clearest communication. It is the core of personal contact and there are less chance of misunderstanding. And the language used by diplomats is English language. Diplomats are appointed by their state to enable foreign policy representations and implementation. And due to the importance of that duty, diplomats must possess multidimensional knowledge. And the language used by diplomats is English, which has already had the characteristics of a global language. Diplomatic language is of special importance as it doesn't appear as a simple tool, but it is also the main pillar of the diplomatic code, and it has been like that at the early beginning of the diplomatic function. So, the need for the cooperation of its member states has led to the use of single language, which is precisely the English language. Okay, now we come to the conclusion. We use verbal communication in almost of our daily activity, but the difference of diplomatic language is that it is more short, clear, and polite. It could help not only diplomats but also any kind of job or occasion. The languages which have been so used by the largest groups of governments in their day called the main diplomatic languages, and among such languages, English has gradually and belatedly come to occupy the first place. And the factors which have contributed to the rise and decline of the major languages of diplomacy have been related to usefulness and convenience. So that's all I can share. I can explain about English and diplomacy. Thank you for watching. And I also attach the references that I use to arrange this material presentation. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.